evening in the boardroom and those who may be watching us virtually. I'd like to open the meeting of the Board of Education regular board meeting of August 6, 2024. Are there any requests to speak? No requests to speak on any closed session items. So we will now adjourn to closed session. Good evening, everyone in the boardroom, as well as those who may be watching us on virtual. I'd like to call us back to our regular session of the board meeting of August 6th. We will now go to language access.
Good evening, everyone. This evening we are going to have Spanish interpretation and ASL interpretation. Buenas noches a todos. Esta noche esta reunión contará con interpretación al español y de lenguaje de señas. Gracias.
Thank you. Now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please rise and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to have a quick announcement from action that was taken in closed session. The board took action on item 3, C3, and the board voted 5-0 to appoint Rob Cooper as the Director of ETS, Educational Tech Services. Congratulations, Rob. Thank you. Okay, our student board member's not here yet, so we will go to the superintendent's report.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy summer. I do want to begin my board report this morning. We have a guest with us today. We know that this preparation to start the new year is quickly picking up in pace, but one of the things that we're really excited about before August 19th is the open enrollment process for our new healthcare plans that we are now rolling out starting yesterday, August 5th, until August 30th. And so with us today is on Zoom, Maggie Lepore, and she is the representative for Burnham Benefits, who has been, should I pause? Burnham Benefits Insurance Services, who has been an incredible partner to us in being able to identify reduced health plan costs, new options for dental insurance for our CSCA employees, and improved informational materials, as well as process for enrollment. So I'm going to bring her on, and I believe you guys have her on.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
There she is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Welcome, Maggie. Give us a second. Just say a few things so we can make sure we can hear you well.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Not yet. Just a second.
Okay.
There you are. Now we can hear you. Go
You
ahead.
can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'll keep it quick. We are in the middle of open enrollment now for your district. And as you know, you guys brought us on as the benefits consulting firm for your district just a handful of months ago. We've kept very busy. We supported your insurance committee through exploring options, through understanding what the insurance landscape entails for your district, what options are within your current pool, what options are outside your current pool. So there was a lot of homework done, really to help the union representatives, the union presidents and leaders, as well as district management get really up to speed pretty quickly in preparation of your negotiations. So leading all of that, we are now in open enrollment. And as you know, I'm sure you all know all the changes that are happening for this year, very positive changes. So the district contribution structure has been completely revamped, which is going to lead to more affordable options for your employees. The other big change is the district and unions agreed to introduce a new plan design option. So part of your current selection, it's added to that. And then finally, you're moving from Delta Dental to MetLife for your dental plan. That's going to give better access to your employees. And for those of you on the plan, even if you go out of network with a dentist that is not part of the MetLife contract, you're not kind of penalized for that. So it really helps alleviate any of the network disruption issues that your employees are currently experiencing. So with these changes requires a lot of education, and you are a large district. It's hard to get to 1,600 employees without a good communication strategy. So in coordination with your chief communication officer at your district, we did put together quite a few materials, recorded presentations about your whole enrollment package, or excuse me, your benefits package, a recorded presentation about the MetLife change, and an FAQ that was, it's in English and in Spanish, and it's has hyperlinks within it. So like if someone's looking to say, well, or looking to answer the question, how much will my plan cost me out of my check as of 10/1? There's a hyperlink that will take them. If you're certificated, this is the link. If you're classified, this is the link. So really a lot of information and different ways of communicating with the employees, which we're really excited to deliver. We also have a very detailed employee benefits guide that outlines the entire program, all the benefits that are offered by the district with the new rates effective 10/1. And we have that in both English and Spanish, just to really ensure that we're able to get this information out to all your employees very effectively. Open enrollment started yesterday. So we are in open enrollment now. We're seeing the hits on the videos. So we're in the hundreds now. So we're seeing that the materials are being accessed, which is obviously a big goal. Everything's posted on the district site. So it's very accessible to your employees. And I know an email also went out. But for the actual open enrollment process, we did introduce a new process for this year, specifically with the fact that keeping in mind that so many changes are happening this year, and really to be able to educate every employee that needs that education, we set up for concierge service of enrollment. So your employees do have access to one-on-one meeting with an insurance expert. It's a service that's facilitated through American Fidelity, but we train them on everything. So they're going to be able to sit down with your employees and discuss any medical plan questions they have, the dental, the vision, all the voluntary products, the life insurance. So it really gives your employees an opportunity to engage one-on-one about their specific case, their specific needs. And I think for this year, that's a really important thing, given that there are so many changes. One thing I anticipate, which we will do a post-renewal look back, and we'll report back to the insurance committee, and we're happy to report back to the board as well, is you have about 600 benefit eligible employees that are currently opting out of the benefits. So this also gives them an opportunity to say, oh, our costs are, to enroll in benefits here is a lot more affordable effective 10/1. Maybe they want to insure themselves or insure themselves with their spouse and or their children. So a lot of activity is anticipated with just so many changes. And like I said, what we will plan to do and what we typically do, especially in a year with so much change, is we'll report back to the insurance committee. Okay, here's where your employees were enrolled. Here's how many opt-outs you had. Here are all the products that are offered. Now here's where they are. After all of these changes, what we anticipate is we're going to see employees opting into the plan and taking advantage of the benefits that are available to them. We're going to see employees perhaps with families on the lower option currently, like the higher deductible plan. We'll see them go up to the lower deductible plan. And even with that movement, they're going to still see a higher take-home pay because of the richer district contribution. So a lot of positive things and a lot of great news to deliver to these employees, to your employees in these one-on-ones. So, and just on a personal note, I have thoroughly enjoyed partnering with your district, working with district management, working with the benefits committee. I hear directly from union leaders with questions at times. And I love that because that's what we're here for. We're here to support anything benefits related, whether it's support through district management or the employees directly. So we're definitely seeing more of that partnership getting stronger and stronger. And we look forward to working with you all for many years ahead.
Thank you so much, Maggie. We really appreciate it. And we also really enjoy all the learning we are getting from your expertise. And you know, so many of us that are running public school districts, this healthcare benefits, deductibles, co-pays, I mean, it's just complicated. And I'm hoping that this will really help all employees make the best decision for themselves or their families or their parents, whatever that family structure looks like. I know I've had the opportunity myself to meet with American Fidelity and was surprised to learn a lot more of things that I need to be paying attention to as I get older and why it's so important for us to really take good care of ourselves. And it goes back to the values of taking care of our employees. So thank you so much, Maggie, for being with
Thank you.
us.
Great seeing you all, and I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Okay,
So board members, our employees are going to have a time given during their back to work kickoff next week to make appointments to see American Fidelity experts, as Maggie explained. We've also we had a management, principal and management meeting this morning where we did talk to our leaders about making sure that we give employees time during work time to make these appointments and go see an expert, because we really think this is such an important event that we want to make sure we support that at all levels of the system and for all different types of employees that we have, including and up to ensuring that they have devices that will help them with any information they need to put in. Question?
Thank you for the presentation. Quick question. Will this concierge service be available for an extended period of time?
We know that if I am correct, it's until the 30th of August. That's the period of open enrollment only.
It is just for open enrollment for
Like I
this
said,
year. It is something we can explore on
If
an
they run
ongoing basis
into
or
maybe a mismatch between what they think they might have enrolled into and what they received, will they talk to somebody at the district or with American Fidelity?
I'll turn to Dr. Becchio for that answer.
So that they'll normally contact district office with changes that or errors that might need to be corrected. However, there are voluntary plans that are also managed through American Fidelity. So there is a rep from American Fidelity that they'll have direct contact to. I think there's a customer service line with American Fidelity. So it really depends on the plan and the question that the employee has about which plan.
Right. So with that, I'll continue. The next part of my presentation or my report this evening is that we are going to be holding a hiring fair for what we call our 9-month employees. These are typically employees who are doing jobs that are like a curriculum specialist, a bilingual paraeducator, and that hiring fair will take place here at the district office from 1 to 4. We are also looking for hard to fill positions like special education teachers. So there's been a campaign. Just today, our very own Ed Zucchelli walked State Street to try to post some flyers around State Street. If you have connections of places that you want to help us post these flyers on, please let us know. If you have networks, please let them know. People that are looking for jobs. Again, these are 9-month jobs that are really just during the school year type of jobs, along with, of course, always the hard to fill teaching jobs. So I did want to make sure that we call out that incredible hiring campaign. And we're going to try to really accommodate some of the needs that I know we've heard from people that is difficult to apply in our district, because we do have a frontline product that we use where people need devices to apply and so forth. There is going to be people that are going to be doing, if I'm correct, and John, please correct me if I say it wrong, we'll be doing some interviews as well, conducting interviews on the spot so that we can really make sure that if we find some really great candidates, we can begin that process. So please help us spread the word. Next, a big change. Let me see. We went to professional learning. Sorry, it's not following my script here. This week we have had some professional learning happening. Yesterday I was with our junior high school principals and their teams with Universal Design for Learning with Dr. Zhang, where we talked about all the ways that we can look for ensuring that we use the right people, time, and resources to ensure that we're meeting the needs of students at all the different tiers and levels of instruction. I also got to jump into the junior high school math teachers training, so that I can kind of check in how that training was going. And a few of them looked a little bit overwhelmed because every time you learn a new math curriculum, that's going to be, you know, a hard, heavy lift. But it was really great to see all that dedication. And I want to thank the teachers that came in to do that as well. And next, and then of course, sorry, I also saw training for elementary reading program with Wisdom for any new teachers and or teachers that are new to a new grade level. So I did see a teacher that I know, I won't name her, who's going to be moving from being a sixth grade teacher to now being a kindergarten teacher. And that's a whole, and for those of us, I'm looking at you, Bill, those of us that have taught, that's a big jump from being a sixth grade teacher to a kindergarten teacher. There's a whole new level of skills that are admirable on both ends. So that was happening this week. It will continue to happen. Next, we have, of course, our new bus service. We're hoping, and you'll hear more in later report from Kim about this new bus company that we will be using. They will be, as you've heard, tracking students, making sure parents know who's getting on and off the bus. And we're going to be able to collect a lot of information to really inform our transportation program. It has been a very loose program, and we're going to tighten up some of that just to make sure, not only for safety reasons, but do we have the right routes? Are they appropriate to the current student population? And do we know who's on the bus and so on? Lastly, I do want to share and thank Roxana Stern from our Human Resources. She's our teacher, new teacher coordinator. Her daughter is part of Fiesta, and every summer since I've been here, at least, Cermeño Academy has asked to come and perform right before Fiesta gets started. So I want to end with the beautiful performance we had last week here in our courtyard, and I want to thank Cermeño Dance Academy for their dancers coming out. These are the best. Oh. And there I am with my dress too, but can't dance at all. I just want to say thank you to them again. And as you can see, we love the arts, we love our students. And so many of our students participate in Fiesta that we don't even know about really because they're part of all these dance academies. And I just want to give a big shout out to all the students and all the adults who help train is not the right word, who help lead the dance that we see. And of course, all our staff, you saw slightly, we had all our staff in the district office come out and sit out and just enjoy that for their lunchtime. So that concludes my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move to the public comments. Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you. Good to see you all. We have 3 public comments. Everyone will get 3 minutes. There's a light system on the podium. When it turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds left. There's also a clock to your right, just over the door. We will start with Brian Hope, followed by Maya Uzaguera, and followed by Rich Lashua. Welcome. Is your mic on? Can you press the button?
Hello, board.
Perfect.
There we go.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Brian Hope, and my 13-year-old daughter will be an 8th grader at La Colina Junior High this fall. Many will find it unbelievable that in 1978, a California law was passed that allowed school districts to set up campus smoking areas. It wasn't until 1987, while I was in high school, that smoking in schools was banned. The current allowance of cell phones in schools will be looked at in the future with the same disgust, with the potential to cause a different but equal amount of harm to our students. The science is there. You may be aware of the research from people like Jonathan Haidt in The Anxious Generation regarding the dramatic hockey stick rise in teen depression, anxiety, and suicide that correlates closely with widespread smartphone and social media use. Other school districts, including the two largest in the United States, understand this crisis and have moved to ban phones in schools. Student phones need to be out of reach and inaccessible during school hours. It's not enough to say that phones must be off and away during class. Allowing students to keep phones in pockets or in backpacks creates a temptation that our students and most adults cannot resist. It also leaves enforcement up to individual teachers, which is an impossible task and a distraction from their intended purpose, instruction. Many schools have proven that during school hour storage of student phones works and creates a better environment for socializing and learning. I have personally seen the sense of exclusion students feel when they do not have a phone at school while others do. Unfortunately, we have created an all or none environment. The 7 to 8 hours a day students spend at school will likely become the only time and place where we can protect them from social media and guarantee them the adolescence they deserve. Though some technology is incredibly useful and has a place in academics, unfettered access to individual smartphones during the course of the school day certainly is not healthy, and the data has proven this. The smartphone experiment is over, and it's now time to remove phones from schools in Santa Barbara Unified. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mayra Oseguera, and there will be Spanish translation, so it'll be 6 minutes instead of 3. And we'll wait a second for our translator. Bienvenidos. Good, yeah.
Can do my interpretation also. No, está bien. La esperamos. So, buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mayra Oseguera.
Good afternoon. My name is Mayra Oseguera.
Estoy aquí para informar a los padres de cómo la privacidad de sus deportistas que son parte o fueron parte del equipo de soccer de la Santa Bárbara High School fueron violados.
I'm here to inform parents how their kids' privacy at Santa Barbara Junior High Santa Barbara High School was violated.
Su coach estuvo usando la página oficial de nosotros haciendo tag su página personal.
His coach was using our official website to tag his own private business website.
Así fue como encontré cada práctica en el gimnasio, en la cancha y algunos progresos de los estudiantes que también eran publicados en su página personal de Instagram.
That's exactly where I found out information about the students' performance, about their practices in the games, and about the students' progress, that those results were also published in his personal Instagram page.
En diciembre 8 del 2023, yo pregunté en uno de los emails que mandé al director de deportes cuándo había firmado un consentimiento para que las prácticas fueran usadas por el coach como publicidad en su página personal.
On December 8th, 2023, I asked via email to the director if he had consented the coach to use this personal information in his own personal publications.
Usted, padre de familia, puede encontrar cuánto él cobra por las prácticas privadas en su página personal.
In his private website, you can find how much he charges for his own services.
Sí recuerdo que se me dijo que a veces se rentan las instalaciones a particulares.
I remember I was told sometimes those premises were rented out to private people.
Y me pregunté cómo esto funciona correcto. No lo sé.
And I was wondering how could this be okay? I don't know.
De acuerdo a las pólizas 1114 y 1113 del distrito, el uso de las páginas de sociales oficiales, estas acciones, publicaciones y uso de información incumplen con los reglamentos aprobados en esta sala.
According to the very own board policies, 1114 and 1113, the use of personal websites to use or to publish information about personal students and their performances is forbidden, and also according to your own board regulations.
Por estas cosas que expresé, mi estudiante pagó las consecuencias.
And it's because of these things that I've been mentioning that my student paid some consequences.
Hasta el día de ayer encontré otra página que se llama Threads, donde siguen puestas y públicas las prácticas oficiales de los deportistas.
Only yesterday, I found on a website called Thread that the students' performance results are also published.
Un año haciendo uso del contenido oficial para beneficio personal.
So this coach has been basically using these websites to his own personal benefit.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Next, we have Rich Lashua. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm addressing things said here over the last two board meetings. In June, the board rightly celebrated the successes of our Black student unions and positive steps taken to stamp out anti-Blackness. President Sims Moten praised that students actively embraced and defined their sense of identity, and she suggested students write a play about their experience. Quite ironic, since I was here campaigning to save the theater program at La Cumbre Junior High. You ever notice how theater kids always seem to have a strong sense of their identity? As someone who's taught in the Marjorie Luke Theater longer than she did, I'll tell you, they don't show up like that on the first day. We all know the work and gratification that comes from producing plays and musicals, but that's only one class of 5 that I teach. The other 4 are deeply rooted in using theater to guide students to explore their story and gain confidence in sharing it. Theater is the best place for our African-American students to discover they're in the middle of revolutionizing Broadway, long considered to be for white creators only. Like when Lin-Manuel Miranda cast non-white actors to play central figures in American history in his blockbuster of Hamilton. It's where our Latino students realize they can tell their own stories within the Heights, instead of white authors telling it for them in West Side Story. Music classes are where African-American students learn that practically all major forms of uniquely American music are rooted in Black artists: gospel, blues, jazz, rock and roll, rap. Meanwhile, they learn to work together with students of other colors and cultures in the room to create music. Ever notice how band kids seem more tightly knit? It's impossible to be successful in music without building respect through community. You ever notice how performing arts students are rarely the chronic absentees, the dropouts, the suspensions, or the underachieving? We gave them a reason to come to school. There's a misconception that the arts are where smart kids shine. I disagree. Through arts, kids figure out they're smart, and then they go apply it to their other classes. When the data consistently shows arts improve literacy, language acquisition, a climate of equity, increased feelings of safety and belonging, and learning how to speak up for ourselves in public, shouldn't we be concerned that so many of our neediest students don't have access to them? This school year, not a single 7th grade student in our district will have a full year course during the school day dedicated to an elective, regardless of which school they attend. Last month, we mentioned building trust and atonement. To restore arts education in our junior highs, we need fewer intra-district transfers to ensure that arts programs exist on every campus. That's in the board's power. We must restore the 7th period that was cut in 2006. Yes, that needs a union vote, but the board's role in this atonement is to value arts enough to promote it or even sunshine it in the next contract negotiations. Heck, if community service was so important that we required it for graduation, why not the arts? Entropy will never solve our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes general public comment.
Thank you. We will now move to D9. Board members, any comments and or questions or you want to share? Mr. Escobedo. Did you have some? Where? What board comments right now?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
I have one.
Yeah.
I don't have much today, but we did have exciting news from our partners at the City of Santa Barbara Housing Authority that they officially submitted the application for our housing project on the east side at the Parma School site. And so it is always a long process, but this is an exciting first step, and plan on bringing back more updates in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Escobedo. Additional comments, board members? Nope, not hearing none. Okay, so we're here. No worries here. So we're gonna move to our consent agenda. Board members and or superintendent, are there items you'd like to pull before we approve it? You're okay? Okay,
We do have public comment on the consent agenda.
consent agenda,
If we
okay.
want to do public comment first.
Sure, then they can just pull the item, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, and then you'll pull it. Yeah.
All right. So we have 4 public comments and they are all on E5. And the first 2 will have Spanish translation. So if we have translation services. The first up is Myra Osaguera, followed by Maggie Mendoza. And third after that will be Victor Carmona.
Gracias. Sí. Tengo solo algunas preguntas sobre el programa 2 Inspire que fue ofrecido aquí en el distrito porque está en la agenda como para ser aprobado. Yo quisiera saber cuántos padres fueron inscritos en el último curso que se dio.
Okay, so I've got a few questions about the To Inspire program that was approved here at the board, by the board. So my first question would be, how many parents attended the last sessions?
¿Cuántos padres terminaron el curso?
How many parents finished the course?
¿Y cuál es el plan para este año?
And what's the plan for this year?
Porque si el plan es que el curso se vuelva a impartir solo aquí en el distrito, pienso yo en mi opinión y en mi experiencia como padre atendiendo a muchos cursos, no va a funcionar porque es
So in my own personal experience, if the idea is to have the course be taken place only here at the district, that wouldn't work. That's my personal experience at least.
recuerdo que hace como 10 años hubo un programa que se llamaba Mandel y fue enviado a cada escuela. Recuerdo que por el principal, en una junta de DIMLA, nos dijeron que iba a haber ese curso para los padres, donde aprendí todo lo importante de involucrarse en la escuela de nuestros hijos.
So a few years ago, 10 years ago, there was this program Mandel that was sent out to take place at schools, and it was approved by the principal. And I remember I learned everything about the courses and what I needed to know.
Entonces, si queremos que estos programas tengan éxito, tenemos que buscar que la forma que sean accesibles para los padres.
So if we are to have these programs be successful, we need to make them accessible to parents.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Next up, we have Maggie Mendoza, followed by Victor Carmona.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Yo veo importante estas capacitaciones para padres y tutores.
In my opinion, these trainings for parents and tutors are extremely important.
Pero se necesita seguir la efectividad que tiene en padres y tutores con estudiantes multilingües emergentes. También saber que funcione y monitorear la asistencia.
But in my opinion, it would be important to monitor its effectiveness, to see what the attendance is like, and also if it's being effective with our emergent multilingual students.
También ser más inclusivos al invitar a padres, tutores con estudiantes multilingües emergentes.
Also, it'd be good to be more inclusive by inviting parents and guardians of emergent multilingual students.
También dar bienvenida a padres y tutores con estudiantes reclasificados.
And it would also be good to invite parents whose kids, whose students have been reclassified.
Buscar la posibilidad de traerlo a cada escuela por cuestión de transporte. No, que traigan la capacitación a la.
And it would also be good to have these trainings at each specific school site.
Antes, enlace de participación familiar daban clases a padres en las escuelas.
Before, the family engagement liaison used to teach about all of these to parents at school sites.
Nosotros entendemos los cambios, pero ¿quién entiende las necesidades de madres, padres o tutores con necesidades de transporte? Padres viven en Goleta y Isla Vista.
So we understand these decisions, but we also feel like who is going to protect and make sure that the parents of students who live in Goleta or even farther away are able to attend those trainings.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Welcome.
Buenas tardes a todos, un gusto de volverlos a ver.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to see you all.
Toda información es muy importante para toda la comunidad.
So any information or training that is given to the community is extremely crucial.
Por varios años se ha sugerido un método más eficaz para dar a conocer toda esta información.
And it's been years since we've been suggesting different avenues to make sure this information would reach the relevant audience.
A consideración de muchos padres de familia, este problema no se ha solucionado.
So in some of our parent groups, we can tell that this problem hasn't been solved.
El año pasado, el pasado año escolar se dio un entrenamiento para padres de familia llamado MAU.
Last school year, parents had a training called MAU.
Y si hoy, antes de aprobarlo, nos gustaría que se diera un reporte de los padres de familia interesados y que participaron para saber los alcances que se tuvo.
So before approving the next plan for the next year, I'd like to have the parents come over here and share if it worked and how could it be improved.
Por ejemplo, ¿cuántos padres de líderes se reclutaron para ayudar en el Comité de Estudiantes Multilingües Emergentes?
So for example, it'd be good to know how many parent leaders were recruited to take part in the committee for EMLs.
Y también nos gustaría saber los costos de este programa, puesto que ahorita con todos los recortes que hay, creo que es importante cuidar cada dólar que se va a los alumnos multilingües emergentes.
And it'd also be good to know about the costs of this program, especially in these times of austerity, because it's important to keep an eye on every dollar and how they are going towards the EMLs.
Muchos padres de familia están interesados en participar en esta idea de comunicación.
Many parents and guardians are interested in keep reaching out to other families to participate in these programs.
Si nos dan la oportunidad, podríamos ser parte de esta organización para algunos meetings, para algunas juntas, planearlas y esperamos que se hagan.
So if you feel it's adequate, we'd be happy to share our feedback and be part of the committee who organizes these programs.
Gracias por su atención. Esperamos que estemos en comunicación este año escolar. Muchas
Thank you for
gracias.
your attention and
Gracias.
hopefully we'll be in touch this next school year. Thank you.
Gracias. Next, we have Socorro Ramirez.
Buenas tardes a todos. Yo solamente quiero también hablar acerca del programa de Proyecto 2 para padres, cual asistí esta vez pasada que dieron esas clases. A mí me encantó, me gustó. Y me gustaría que esta vez dieran más información a las escuelas, a los maestros, para que más padres puedan ser incluidos en estas clases, porque veo la necesidad especialmente en los padres con los estudiantes multilingües emergentes.
So I'm here to share with all of you how much I loved and how much I liked the program Proyecto 2, Project 2. I felt like it was really useful, and I'd like to know how many parents would be willing to participate, especially parents of EMLs.
En años pasados hemos, al menos en mi experiencia, hemos asistido a programas como este, pero diferente nombre, y es una información similar, pero sí cambia mucho. Entonces eso me ayudó a mí a involucrarme, a saber más lo que mis hijos necesitaban para que fueran exitosos para ir a una universidad.
So in past years, I've participated in other programs, and I can tell that they are all similar, but at the same time, this one, every one of them is different. And the information I've got from all of them has been extremely useful, especially to help my kid make it to college.
Me siento orgullosa por haberme involucrado en la educación de mis hijos, y yo quisiera para mis familiares cercanos y claro, para todos los padres, que sus hijos también fueran exitosos para ir a una universidad.
So I feel like it's been so useful that I'd like not only for my family, but also for my relatives and the parents of other students to be able to help their kids be successful and be able to attend college.
Y mi sugerencia es si por favor pudieran dar más estas clases en las diferentes escuelas, no solamente aquí en el distrito, porque la vez pasada hubo una madre de familia que no asistió a todas las clases por la transportación que venía de lejos y tomar 2 buses para llegar aquí.
So my suggestion to you would be to offer these trainings at the school sites, because I remember last year there was a mom who was unable to attend all of the sessions here at the district because she would be coming from far away.
Muchas gracias y espero que consideren esta sugestión.
Thank you so much, and I
Gracias.
hope you consider my suggestion. Thank you.
Gracias. That's the last public comment for the consent calendar.
Okay, board members, Ms. Bill.
Am I allowed to make a comment on this issue?
Yeah, we'll just pull it for discussion, and we just had to have the comments first. So if you want to pull it for further discussion,
I would like to.
okay, then we can, so we'll pull that forward. Just hold a second on that, and so that we can approve the rest of the agenda, and we'll pull that one. Also on E2, and I know you have on the consent agenda on on E2, I need to recuse from a separate contract, so we need to vote separately on that. And so I would make sure I do that when we call that out. And then you needed to pull.
On E2 as well, we are pulling the American Medical Response Ambulance Service. We need to have more discussion and create some coherence across our high schools. We found that there's some disparate implementations happening, and we have enough time to bring it back if we do decide to do that in time for the games. So we'll be pulling American Medical Response Ambulance contract off of the E2 contract list.
Okay. So what I would like to do then is seek a motion to approve with the exceptions of consent items 2 and 5, to approve those items beyond those 2.
So moved.
Okay, a second.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. So we'll move to item 2, if we can look at that. The reason that I need to recuse is that one of the contracts is with Susan Walsh, who is a first five commissioner. So I need to step away from that, seeing how that's my board that I report to.
So I'll make a motion to approve E2 with the exception of American Medical Response Ambulance Service and Susan Walsh.
Yeah, you just said, you can, you
Oh,
want to
you
approve
would
it.
just do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So then actually I move to approve the contract with Susan Walsh. And I will, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And then I'm going to do a roll call vote. President Sims Moton,
I recuse.
Gabe Escobedo, yes.
Aye.
Rose Munoz,
Aye.
Dr. Beal.
Aye.
It passes 4 in favor and 1 recusal.
And then, so then we can just do, you can also do
And-
E2 and with the removal of.
So I will make the motion to approve E2 with the exception of the contract that we just approved and with the removal of American Medical Response Ambulance Service.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, now we'll move to E5, where we want to pull for discussion. Ms. Beal.
Thank you, President Sims Moton. So I have been listening to the comments and I have also been listening to comments that have been made previously. And the issue that seems to be that there is a lack of information, that there needs to be clarification about this program to train parents in terms of the resources that are available at the Santa Barbara school districts. What I'm hearing is there's a concern about how well this program has been, have people completed the training? How many people has it been successful? That the site issue, that there is a site issue, that having it potentially at schools versus at the district site might make it more available to more people. And the other issue is an interesting one. So the people may be aware that we had a board retreat soon after I joined the board, and we learned about something called the theory of aligned contributions. And I believe the cabinet staff and the leadership in the district also had that training very recently, several weeks ago during their leadership conference. And that training really talks about when you have a program, or if you have a lack of success within the district, how do you try to improve the success, or how do you look at the program critically and make sure it's effective? And what it involves is getting feedback from all stakeholders. And the question that has come here with this particular program is we have family liaisons, we have parents, and there is a training program. And my thought on the subject is, if we have our family liaisons be trained in this program with the assistance of this group, that eventually they are the trainers. And this is a good way to bring the knowledge within the district to continue and persist and to be able to train parents. The question I have about this program is, I know that we had it in place last year, and I don't know that we're at a point where the family liaisons are able to train all the parents. Have they had the requisite education? So my hesitation with this item is, certainly I don't want to stop a process that could go forward and include everybody in the community. So my thought is how do we bring in the parents and the family liaisons to be part of this discussion and see how do we get from here to there, where we're all working together, and can the families as well as the family liaisons feel that the program is working in a way that is effective for them, whether we need to change the school sites, how the training happens, how do we engage the community in a way? I know I've heard about needs for childcare. I've heard about school sites, having it at all the schools and not just at a few schools. So how do we have this larger conversation so this is an effective program? This is part of our LCAP, especially with the EML students. So it all kind of comes together. And I think everybody, including myself, is struggling with where are we going with this program and how do we make it effective? That's my comment.
Any additional comments, board members, before we have Ms. Edison speak? Okay, Ms. Edison, he'd like to hear.
Yes, all of those are valid points, Dr. Bill. Thank you so much. The family liaisons actually met on June 17th before leaving for a break to actually do strategic planning for this school year. And so you are dead on. We're not investing any resources without the questions of what did we do? How well did we do it? Right? Who is better off because of our actions? So yes, the liaison, so the plan for the Project Inspire in co-leadership with Dr. Deborah Martinez, sorry, got minds went, was that it will be at the school sites, because what the FELs advocated for was that their parents and their community build another sub-community at their school site. And then at the district office, they become a broader community, because we are establishing and trying to create a sense of belonging and value for culture and shared experiences. It also was that we would pick 4. So the agreement amongst the group was that we would pick 4 of the 12 modules. We weren't going to do them all. It was the ones that the FELs reported that their parents shared they enjoyed the most. So we landed on 4 of those. And one of them was the education system in the US. It is very different from countries that our families have come from. So really onboarding them to the expectations. We also talked about each of the sites co-presenting with a parent that have completed the modules, so that it really is for families. They see themselves in there. We also talked about, of course, childcare and food. We talked about timing. We talked about co-leading in spaces where we may have small numbers and schools combine if they're in proximity, and or doing a feeder model. So if the elementary is having one, they invite the junior high, or if the high school's doing it, they invite all of their feeder pattern, so that we can create a big bang for our buck and create a community within community. We had the discussed training dates, which is why that contract has come forward from Dr. Martinez, because as you heard, we do align contributions and we co-lead and we link initiatives so that we aren't working in silos. So this actually went through the FELs, and they were the ones advocating for their parent community.
So if I understand correctly, there will be a change in how the program is going to be administered.
Absolutely.
And this is a more complicated question. Do we see in the future gaining enough knowledge with our FELs and with anybody else that's involved in the district to be able to actually teach themselves? So maybe even receive stipends, kind of have that professional learning be within the district. Do we see that this program could help us get to this place? Contributions?
Absolutely. It's about sustainability. So through MTSS, it's not enough to implement good practices. We have to sustain them. So the contract, it's actually for a TOT, which is a trainer of the trainer. So the FEL liaisons would be the people facilitating the meetings in partnership with the parent from their site. So this is that building capacity.
Thank you for that information.
Absolutely.
Mr. Escobedo.
Do we anticipate that if we were to renew a contract again for the following year, does it build on itself in terms of the knowledge set? So let's say we choose the same 4 topics. We're not just getting the same information year after year.
So this year we contracted and there was a facilitator. This contract is to build capacity in our own folks to facilitate. There's 12 modules, and what we agreed on as a consistent commitment is to roll out 4. So there's still 8 more that we can roll out in the other years, and or revisit the ones that our families are saying that they really appreciated and were valuable to them. So we still have some reserve to roll out for the future years.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I just add one complexity is that, as you know, we have 5 districts who feed into our school district. So there's always this recurring new group of families that we have to keep in mind, that while it seems like we're repeating things, we're constantly bringing new people into the system that will need that information. So it's kind of a both and answer to your question and to Dr. Beal, in terms of the fact that in our system, we're constantly changing people and bringing in new families. So how we curate that and how we track that is also really important. I just don't want to lose that fact of the 7th grade incoming and newcomers at different points in the system.
And I also want to add, as we link things, for Panorama this year, we are rolling out the ability for school sites to do check-ins. So this would be a great opportunity for school sites to check in with their parents who attended the modules to get even more information about what was relevant at the school site and to inform their decision on what modules they bring back. So that's a good tool for the sites to use.
Dr. Bill?
Just sort of building on Board Member Escobedo mentioned, we have feeder school sites, and I would like to think that if we can build that capacity for instruction within our site, we could offer to those other school sites, without their having to go into a separate contract or MOU with this company, that our instructors could receive compensation to go to these other school districts and do that sort of teaching before they enter our school district. So, I mean, I really feel like in the end, we can make a more global plan that involves districts where these students also reside.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yeah, I would say maybe similar to that, but not necessarily sending our staff to the school sites in other school districts. Maybe inviting sixth grade families to, incoming families before they're actually in our district to attend some of these sessions would be nice. A nice primer entering into our school system.
I will say that I will speak to my colleagues, superintendents who have their own boards and their own budgets and offer them the opportunity to learn about the work we're doing here as we think about how they run their districts. But definitely the incoming parents will have to figure that out.
Any additional comments for Ms. Edison question? Thank you, Ms. Edison. I just wanted just a comment in terms of continuing to see how we're strengthening the system as a whole, which creates continuity, as we're just saying. And because here, heard it also maybe last year when it was first instituted, but about accessibility, and you've really addressed that in terms of from those who are most closely impacted by it. So what do they need? So I see that in there and just appreciate that. And we know that we are continuing to make this system stronger and better as we're continuing to have our input with regards to that. So thank you for that. And thank you for parents who help working on the NFL family liaisons. Okay, board members, with that, do I hear a motion for approval? Dr. Bill?
I move to approve item E5, approval of the memorandum of understanding between the California Association for Bilingual Education, CABE, and Santa Barbara Unified School District to one parent specialist to deliver a project to Inspire's on-site Spanish mastery level learning modules and trainer module for family engagement liaisons.
I'll second that motion.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. All right, now we will be moving to our next item as a report agenda. We're just kind of doing some switch for the F1 Budget Sustainability Report. Ms. Hernandez is coming to the mic.
So as Ms. Hernandez comes up, board members, one of the biggest, so today, hopefully we're modeling a little bit of that learning and that processing and feedback loops that we'll need to continue to strengthen and lean into and have as part of our regular practice. And coming out of last year's negotiations, we heard over and over again, some misconceptions, some misunderstandings around budget cycle. We did a lot of work to try to improve the communication around how that works, what we're bringing forward. And more than anything, we have a lot of lessons learned about how we need to really be continuously assessing the staffing, staffing and budgeting, contracts, and all the things that make up running a school district. For example, just a minute ago, we discussed this idea that there are expert people in certain areas that we lean into as we build the capacity of our staff and as we think about sustainability efforts over time. Similarly, as we think about all the jobs that we have in place, the fact that we have grants that expire, one-time funds that expire, what we really want to engage in this year is a more thoughtful process that is not layered with labor negotiations, new rules from classified around noticing employees by March 15th and May 15th that kind of hit us, along with a loss of big money around federal expenditure. So that was a perfect storm that we just went through last year that had many layers of complexity. And the lesson learned is that we really need to be thoughtful and consistent and guide our decisions in a very disciplined and rigorous way. So this morning when we met again with principals and managers, we did talk about the need to rethink all of our investments and really relook at all the work that we do. And to that end, I just want to remind us that we have all these ed code requirements around when Kim gives us first interim, second interim, 45-day budgets, unaudited actuals, audited actuals, and so on. And we've seen that budget cycle, you'll see in a minute. We also have requirements around the LCAP and when that gets done, and what data we have available to us when we write the LCAP, just like we do with the single plan for student achievement. And then August comes up, we get all brand new test scores, and all of a sudden the picture emerges slightly different. And so that's what happens. That's part of this complex system of education that we are running. So even this morning when we met with our principals, we said, look, we know you wrote single plans. You all reviewed them. You all got a chance to approve them. We know we used a lot of information around students' test scores then, and you made investments based on what we thought at that moment was the context and time. Now that we've settled our negotiations, now that we know what kind of budgets we have, now that we're entering into a new year with new fresh data on state scores, along with our formative scores that we will do, we all need to really rethink, even though the board may have approved a budget, we really need to ask ourselves, okay, we got that budget approved. Are we really going to do it? Are there students going to be better off with it? And does the data still point to that need? And that's something I'm asking of not just cabinet leaders, but also principals, managers, and anybody who's managing a budget, as well as staffing. When we're looking at, in a minute with Kim, we'll look at our org chart. We'll need to really walk ourselves through a more rigorous process for deciding when Dr. Becchio's asked by a principal, I'd like to have a new teacher because I don't want to have a combination grade level, for example. We're going to have to bring in Kenya and look at our enrollment numbers and look at our transfers and look at, is this something we're going to do, or is this something we're going to really take some time to assess? And that's what the beginning of this report is today for you, is to really acknowledge all the decisions that get made in a certain time and context, and then what happens when you open a new year, and then the process throughout, so that by the time we get to spring of next year, you won't be surprised as to how we're being organized and what kind of investments we're making. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Hernandez to take you through how we plan to do that work. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is our very, very first budget sustainability report. So the purpose of this report, as Dr. Maldonado said, is to kind of ensure that the board is aware of the process that we'll be taking to identify where we need to tighten up, different things that we need to do in order to maintain our budget. I had this conversation with the managers today, the principals, and also the classified management. And what I wanted to stress to them is that when we talk about budget, we're not talking about, in general, one budget. We're talking about all the many, many, many budgets that make up the one budget. We probably have anywhere from 30 to 40 budgets that are all built into this one big budget that we present every time. And so all of us, everyone in our organization has an impact on that budget. We have budgets in our departments. We have budgets in our school sites. Some of our school sites have 5, 6, 7 different budgets. So all of that, all of those pieces build into one big budget. And when we talk about how negotiations impact all of that, that means that all of those little budgets that build up into the one big one have all grown by the fact that we had these large staff increases this year. And some of the budgets that were created before any of that occurred. We knew we were having negotiations, but we didn't know what that outcome would be. And it ended up being higher than what we had been projecting all along. So these are kind of things where we need to now assess where we are today and the different things that we need to look at. And so our goal is to have you all see very clearly and have the public see very clearly the things that we are doing to address all of these items. But first we start with our values. As with everyone's budgets, your home budgets, you're going to put your money where you value the things the most. And so our very first statement is that we are trying to improve our student outcomes. That's what everybody in the school district is trying to do. Every single budget is trying to do. And we want to support all of our quality educators to promote the success for our students. And when I talk about educators, I'm not just talking about teachers. I'm talking about everyone in the system, because we all have some form of education for our students. We all are in that system. It's important that we are going to remain fiscally solvent for the current short term and for the long term. When I present the budget to you, we're always talking about at least the current year and 2 years out. And we're trying to be really transparent in this process and also meet the diverse needs of our district. This is the org chart that Dr. Maldonado was talking about. It's a little hard to see because it is so big. But we want to just start with thank you. The very first column there is our school principals, because they are under this umbrella, and that's where, you know, our teachers and our school site people are under that umbrella. And then across the top, we have our assistant superintendents, our different departments. So what we're looking at is we're going to be looking very closely at how this wonderful family tree works, and kind of assess, you know, if we end up with vacancies, if we end up with changes in departments, how that affects the system and what we need to do. So one of the changes, very recent changes is under the operations and accountability, where we have our technology, our technical support, our ETS, our information systems. The CTO has left, and so we're not filling that position, and we're having, as you know, you voted on tonight, Rob Cooper is now going to be the director of ETS, but we're not filling that space, and we're going to use that money to help our budget. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be looking at, especially as it relates to administration and managers. Yes.
So you may be asking yourself, what does that mean? How is that going to happen? The CTO position was created many years ago, probably 2 superintendents ago, to meet the need of a one-to-one device project. And that called for that time to do something like that. We fulfilled that objective, and we think that we don't need to have such a high level position anymore, because now we have that program going, and therefore scaling down makes sense. There shouldn't be changes and disruption to the business of the district, because we've done it for so many years now. I want to say something like 10 years. Somebody will clarify for me, but Rob is shaking his head. So just about 10 years, we've had this one-to-one device program. We've got it all running like a machine now. So we don't need to have that kind of investment in that kind of level. And we're going to be looking at things like that. So you might be asking yourself, will services change? Not really. We hope we got it to a point where we no longer need that, and Steve can, Mr. Vance can take care of that department now.
Thank you. So just as a reminder that the district and the Santa Barbara Teachers Association negotiated the largest salary increase that we have had in at least 2 decades. That's amazing. And we're very happy about it. And we're very happy that we've been able to do this for our employees. But it came at a very large cost. The total estimated impact for that negotiation is $24 million over the 2 years. And we're going to be deficit spending by $21 million. Well, deficit spending means that in any current year, your expenditures are greater than the revenues that are coming in that current year. You may still have a beginning balance that helps to cover that. You may still have reserves that helps to cover that, but deficit spending, just in a very general term, is you're spending more money in a year than what you are receiving in a year. So we are going to be using our reserves to help pay for those salary increases. And we're going to have to see a pretty healthy $12 million in cuts in order to maintain our reserves. And we're going to need to look at how we do our business differently across the district. So that is what this whole report is about, and what we're going to be doing is looking at how we're going to do things differently, or where we can kind of help support our budget. These are the objectives that we're using to identify fiscal sustainability. So this slide is just basically telling us ways that we have identified to ensure our long-term financial stability. We're going to try to have balanced staffing levels. We're going to improve efficiencies, and we're going to search out additional funding sources where we can. And this is how examples of how we're meeting those objectives already. We are really working on our energy efficiency. Our Mr. Desmond Ho likes to come up and tell us wonderful ways on how we are conducting energy audits, how we are doing energy efficient lighting, how we're looking at HVAC systems and appliances, all the wonderful things that we're doing that are not only going to sustain our budget now, but will sustain our budget in future years. This is really forward thinking, and it's really what we need to be doing. And of course, our solar projects. Looking for additional funding. We are always looking for grants, always. And we have some already in the works. Career technology, career tech education, CDE grants, anti-bias grant, community partnership planning. Those are just some of the many grants that we're doing. And we're also using partnerships to help with our funding sources and to, supplement where we can. We have an amazing partnership with the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, who is always there to help us, and Lenny Foundation and several others. Dr. Maldonado mentioned that we are having a new bus company. Zoom is going to be amazing. I'm already really impressed with all the things that they're talking about, how they're going to really help our district, not only for the safety of our students and to be able to know which students are on the bus and which students get off the bus, and for parents to be able to know exactly when the bus is arriving, just like you would on Uber or Lyft. But also the fact that they are going to really be analyzing our routes, because we're not changing anything right off the bat, just so parents and everybody know. We are starting the year with the exact routes that we have had all along, and we are even adding a couple. But as time goes by, they will be using data and to find out if there are different ways that we can actually be more efficient in our busing. So they have done that for other school districts, and they ended up saving other school districts a lot of money. So these are areas that we are going to be focused on, and we are having we are creating a group that a cabinet level group that will study these areas: travel and conference, facilities, catering, programs, everything that we can. We are going to be digging deep into all the areas of our budget and trying to find out if there are ways that we can do things better. If there is something that we've been doing for 10 years that we have, solved or changed or fixed, and we can do it a different way. All those kinds of things. We're going to be really careful looking at it. So we will be reorganizing the district with results in mind, and we're going to be bringing you a report, and so that you can know exactly what we're doing, and the public can too. That's it.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any requests to speak on this item? Ms. Bill? No.
Thank you for that presentation, Kim. I have a question. We've been talking about finances quite a bit over the last, for a while. And how are we planning to include other stakeholders in this conversation? You talked about cabinet level conversations that are going to happen monthly. And I noticed on the governance calendar, which is coming up, that we are actually going to have more regular presentations with, I believe, financial strategic planning. So if people have concerns about financial issues, will those conversations happen at board meetings, or what are the other opportunities that will be available to teachers, staff, the public to ask questions and get clarification?
I sort of misspoke when I said a cabinet level. Today we determined in our meeting with the principals and with the classified managers that we wanted to have at least one classified manager and one principal on the group that looks at these items. very carefully. So we did try to broaden that as well.
Just to add to that, sorry. To add to that, I do have regular meetings with our labor partners. In the note to the board, I did talk about the fact that we are going to increase some of the frequency of those meetings. And so whatever you're getting, others will also get. Sometimes it'll be before you get it or after you get it, but there'll be some sinking in of sharing information. I do want to recognize that the building of the capacity of everyone to understand all of this is going to be a little bit of a challenge because we also want principals running school systems, sites. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get that thoughtfully out to people. And I welcome any and all ideas for how we can do that. The engagement of people in the decision making is not the same as what kinds of things we'll be identifying. So I just want to be clear that there's two different processes happening with that.
Yeah, I understand that, you know, there's definitely people with expertise and knowledge in the decision making, really, because they understand these things. Would the principals be representing the teaching staff?
So there's what Kim was speaking to is a process we're going to engage in that will really look at every expenditure coming forward when it comes to the, if you can show slide 7, Sandra. We're asking people to really tighten up their budget, their expenditures, right? Next, let's see.
The other one more, I think.
The other way. Keep going. Here. Oh,
That
there.
one. Nope,
Oh,
back.
right here. So we are asking people to really, for lack of a better word, freeze their spending and make sure that when we're bringing it to you, when you look at consent items, when you look at action items for approvals, that we've gone through a rigorous decision-making process for why we're bringing it forward. So just like today, I pulled the ambulance contract. You guys asked some really good questions that led us to realize, wait a minute, there's no coherence across the decisions that are being made. Let's pull it back. Let's create a system for deciding how it's going to go forward. So similarly, when we look at travel and conference, we're really going to put a group together that'll be Ms. Hernandez. If it has to do with staffing, Dr. Vecchio. We're going to have somebody represent my office, myself, or one of my designees. And we're going to include a representative from the principals. Today, they chose a principal to represent principals and a classified manager. That committee will get together after the leading cabinet member has agreed, yes, this is a justifiable travel expense, because I'll just make it up. School psychologists have to attend a new training on identifying students in an IEP, and it's in San Diego, let's say. So then that will be brought to the cabinet leader. It'll go through that decision-making process, and we'll be asking ourselves questions like, does it meet a compliance need? Will the district business be interrupted if we don't do it? Will there be any compliance reasons, any district goals that won't be met because this didn't happen, and so on. And that'll be true for anything that has to do with travel and conference, contracts we're bringing forward. We're really looking at catering for meetings. We're asking people not to do that anymore. Last year, we did do a lot of that, especially when we have all-day meetings where we have people sometimes even working through lunch. We do have the DEMLAC parent catering budget that will be intact. So I'm looking at my DEMLAC parents, don't worry. But we're really going to be bringing some of these expenditures every single time so that we're really clear at the cabinet level with managers and principals at the table for why this is being brought forward. The staffing, as Kim said, like with the CTO is another good example of saying, asking ourselves, do we really need one? Will it impact district business? No, actually we don't. Let's get rid of that and save that money. We did it last year with Ed Services. We went from having 2 assistant superintendents to 1, K-12. And so that's that committee that's going to just really be more rigorous and disciplined in the decision-making of what we're asking you to approve, but really asking ourselves first, is this really needed? As far as the what is coming out of that, I think it's too soon for me to tell you it's going to look like this or this is where we're going to cut, because we actually have to go through that process and then look at the objectives we set for ourselves in the previous slide and really go through that process to be able to land at, this is where we think is going to be the least impact. The overall goal is how we protect the classroom. In any of these decisions is how will the classroom be protected so that the least disruption is happening there. But we still have to look at things like low enrollment, declining enrollment, and ask ourselves really difficult questions, bringing it to the board, discussing it before any of those decisions get made. So there's not like a strategic plan where we've already decided what's getting cut and now we're going to start cutting. We're actually taking many steps backwards first and then going through that process. I hope that was a long answer, but I hope that made sense to your question.
I do appreciate the extra detail. I mean, I think for me, that's the processing. I go through the same processing that everybody else goes through, which is asking the questions. Is this an expense that needs to continue? We had that discussion with E5. Is this a program that we need to continue because we started something? Is it effective? And that's a question that came up that we still have to answer. Is it effective? And so I think with communications, not just with the public, but also with the board, it would be useful when we see like 20 contracts to have a little more information on ongoing program, new contract, and, just that discussion that's probably happening with the experts in the area and all their stakeholders to know this has already been vetted, and every question, we're always going to have questions, but that sort of information would be useful, I think, for everybody, not just for me.
Any additional questions, comments? Mr. Escobedo.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez, for the presentation. And thank you for bringing this forward as an idea and what I see as a real listening to the discussion about transparency that we heard for much of last year. And I think this is one of many tools for that. And it also allows us to really gain a more full understanding of, and when I say we, I mean the broader we of like public, our staff, our community partners, to gain a fuller understanding for the budget, because I think there were a lot of misconceptions in the last year. And so I know it's in the governance calendar, but these are going to be monthly, the budget sustainability discussions.
That's our goal. That's what we're proposing in the governance calendar.
Okay. And then the second question is the number that is on slide 4 about the financial impact of the successful negotiation that we just had. Does this include our future agreement with CSEA?
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be adding, once that's agreed to, we'll be bringing that too.
Okay. Thank you. I think for me, I just have a few comments, if that's okay. It's just, again, I do appreciate these opportunities. I think it would be helpful if there was some sort of channel for further clarifying questions. If like community members, families, or staff had other questions, maybe they couldn't make it to public comment. But I'm hoping that these presentations build on each other. And I think that's what I heard from you, Dr. Maldonado, is that they're building on each other so that when we get to the new year, and we are going to be faced with some really tough financial decisions. I'm just going to say it. There's no way around that. There are going to be some tough financial decisions that we have to make. That we're not surprised about how we got there or about what information that we're talking about. So one, a communication channel for people to get clarification about the discussions that we have in our monthly budget sustainability topics. And then the second piece is maybe in the board memo or in the presentations, linking to or pointing to the fact of, okay, on this date, so on August 6th, 2024, this was the first one, and this is what we discussed. And then as people, let's say they drop in, they're still enjoying their summer right now. The start of the school year is busy, but they drop in October or November to watch a board meeting. And then it's the first budget sustainability meeting that they're watching. Having some indication there that there were previous discussions that built to the topic that we're discussing so that they have easy access to access that information or maybe go watch the video. I think the last piece is just I hope that as we continue throughout this school year, I know one of the big discussions has been about trust, rebuilding trust, relationships. And I've always said it works both ways, but there is an earnest effort here. And I do want to show appreciation for something like this, because I think when we get to the new year and we do have those really tough decisions, this is us taking a look at every piece of our budget and asking us, what do we need? What is protecting the classroom? What can we do without? And I know we've heard it a lot, like, let's take apart the budget and take a look. It is very complicated. If we have learned nothing else, it is very, very complicated. There's so many state and federal requirements. There's so much restricted funding versus general funding. The fact that we are a community funded district, you intertwine all of those things with one-time monies, and it is so desperately complicated. So these discussions are welcome, and I just wanted to demonstrate appreciation for this. I think this is the right move, and look forward to the monthly discussions.
Additional comments, board members? Just add a comment. Thank you for the presentation. And as I said here, I was thinking I need to just take a step back to how do we make the first step in the actions we need to take to build the relationships, right? And to build communications and transparency. Those are things we heard throughout the whole past year and even before the year, in terms of that. Once we build the environment in which we're building the trust and everybody is aware of the information and the process of what we're doing, then you don't think you have to pull the budget apart because you know, right? So it's the relationship, right? That is key to what you can discuss all day, what we're saying, and it is in earnest. This is that first step in being transparent about the information that's coming. So when we have to make decisions, be it budget or whatever, you can connect the things together, because separate and apart, they don't, really connect to the issue that may be before us. I also think that when we start to look at this piece, where the frustrations, the labor and negotiations, they happen, they're intense. That's not new, but it was a vehicle in a imperfect environment to express every level of frustration. It was the vehicle in which it happened, right? Because it really said beyond the fact that we got labor negotiations, it was saying everything else, but that was the vehicle to get it there. So the more that we are transparent, the more that we are having these conversations, and that was the atonement that I had mentioned in the last board. These are the actions in which we're going to do that. And it's important that everybody plays a part in that, whether it's listening and being informed in education. That also includes the community. The community was all up in the business of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, as they should be, but it's oftentimes misinformed, right? And so how do we do that? The first step is, what are we doing here tonight? We're having these discussions. We're being upfront about it, being clear about it. You may not like it. Yeah, may not agree with it, but you're informed about it, right? And the time is to ask the questions for clarifications, so that when it's a frustrating time, that particular time is not being used as a vehicle about something else. So this to me is it is truly about relationships. That's really what this is about, starting to build those relationships. It is a two-way street that happens, and that is in communication. That's what we heard time and time again about communication, and rightfully so. So how do we communicate better? I know that's coming too. So presenting those things that was heard and expressed and felt, throughout that whole time. So I appreciate this too. And I think it's important to keep connecting it. It's not just about the budget, it's connecting it. It's connecting it to decisions we're going to have to make. So anytime that we're coming and we're talking about open enrollment, we're talking about whatever we're talking about, it needs to be connected to decisions we ultimately will have to make. And so to Mr. Escobedo's point, as well as Ms. Beal, in those moments, we can refer people back. You may not recall. You recall on August 6th, they did this, and making that's important for us to make that connection. Not as a defense, but an information, and respecting what we're trying to do is build the relationship. And so I think this is that first start. This is the first step in many that we're going to have to take to get there, and explaining and inviting the conversation. And lastly, I'll say that I've been saying all the time, it's about mutual respect too. You can be upset, you can be angry, but it's about mutual respect, trying to get where we need to get to our understanding. How do we come together on this road? And we don't have an outside looking in, looking like we're crazy, that we don't care, because that's what it looked like. So if this is the first step and where we are courageous enough to say that we're gonna, have to make some necessary cuts, but making that connection all along, because it's not just about the budget. The budget is the result of what we've had to do all year long. So all the things and the actions that we've taken all year long, the budget says that. They're saying your budget is your conscience, right? So that should include what's happening, what decisions have to make. So when you present the budget, it shouldn't be there any confusion or frustration. But creating an environment where we can have those earnest conversations and appreciation for folks, because this year, having gone through that, that was a hard lesson to come through, and we certainly can do what we need to do. It's almost like I had these thoughts about that Mission Impossible. I was like, where is that music at? Dun, 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 dun. That Mission Impossible. But to say this is Mission Possible here, we can actually do what we need to do. And I say, I have a call to action. It's game on. We're better than what we've been in this last year. It's game on to be better. So if I don't hear any additional comments from the board, I just want to, there's no action being asked to be taken here. So I just want to appreciate the comments from the board and also the presentation, and looking forward to other conversations that we will have, and we'll continue to connect, everything that we're doing. So when we have to make a year end, it makes sense. So
Thank you.
thank you. All right, with that, we will move now to our action agenda. We went to G1, approval of human resources recommendation. Dr. Becchio, board members, remember to take self-care here. So.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Board President Sims-Mote, board members, Superintendent Maldonado. I present to you tonight for this action item, the human resources recommendations. And as usual, I just want to make a couple highlights, make you aware of a couple highlights. We do have a promotion on this recommendation list for Vanessa Rodriguez Nunez, and she is going from a secretary to admin secretary 3 for M&O. Also, several additions of classified language service premium. Paulina Bobadilla, Jessica Garcia, and Arturo Rodriguez Martinez. So congratulations to them. I also wanted to just change it up a little bit and bring up my colleague, John Shetler, to point out something to the board that I thought you would like to hear about on this list.
Good evening. So a little over a year ago, you probably heard us talk about the RISE program that we developed to provide counseling to our elementary students after we broke up with our partnership with COM for that same work. And part of that entailed hiring trainees that were still accruing hours toward their associate for their mental health license to work alongside some licensed folks in our elementary schools, with the idea that we were building a pathway for those folks once they became associates to get hired on as full-time clinicians. And so I wanted to highlight for you that we do have one of our first direct hired clinicians who was a trainee for us last year. And I don't want to get a name wrong. So it's Madeline Park under the classified staff. She did her trainee work last year at Roosevelt, and this year she'll be starting full-time at Roosevelt as an associate clinician. So we are building that pathway. And congrats to Madeline.
And with that, I'll turn it back to you for your consideration.
Any requests to speak from the public?
Yes, we have one, York Shingle. Welcome.
Good evening. Pardon me. Good evening, Board Superintendent and Cabinet. I'm York Shingle, SBTA Treasurer, and after you approve G1, the McKinley MTSS TOSA. I am so excited to join the team at that school and support the incredible work they're doing with their students. I'm excited to be a McKinley also. And there's always an and. I'm also speaking tonight to let you know that it's disappointing for me. There's no mechanism for feedback about our leaders because you would better understand the reason for this change if we gave feedback. Dr. Beal, your email today was well timed. I have an exit interview with Dr. Maldonado tomorrow to go into specifics, which I won't do here. But the only reason that meeting came about is because I'm in a monthly check-in with her, Dr. Becchio, and Osby Galindo, our union president. Otherwise, there's no current practice to find out how our boss's leadership, effectiveness, and care is received by staff. I encourage a change in this practice to further rebuild those relationships. Thank you, and keep an eye out for the incredible work at McKinley and the wonderful things going on at our school. Somos osos.
Thank you.
That concludes. Yes. With that, board members, any comments or questions? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the HR report.
Second.
Been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right. Now we move to G2. The board heard appeals and have them made the following decisions. So I need a motion on the decisions that were made. On the appeal 202-425-T01 was remanded back to the district administration for more information. And then the second appeal, number 202-425-T02, the board upholds the district administration's denial for the interdistrict transfer requests. So may I have a motion for those two appeals as read?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, then motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we'll move to Mr. Esteban to G3.
So for G3, I move to approve Student Discipline Education Code 48918, case number 202324-35.
I'll second that. Now that it's been motion second, all in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving to G4, approval of resolution number 2024-2025-04, authorizing disposal of surplus instructional materials during the 24-25 fiscal year. Ms. Hernandez.
So this is a resolution in order to be able to dispose of surplus instructional materials. We have ed code that says that school districts that do this need to have authorization from the board every year in order to be able to do it. So an example of this is, we have some new curriculum. And so if we have old curriculum that we're no longer needing, we can dispose of it. Other school districts may want it. And so this is the resolution to be able to do this.
Okay, thank you. Any requests to speak on this item? Hearing none, board members, you have any questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve resolution 2024-2025-04, authorizing disposal of surplus instructional materials.
I second the motion.
Okay, been motion and second. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. I think this next one is for you as
Next
well.
one is me as well.
Approval of resolution 2024-25-03.
So there we go. So this resolution is very similar to the other one, but it is to be able to dispose of surplus property. Some examples of this would be furniture that we're no longer using, filing cabinets, those kinds of things that we are no longer using. Sometimes we can maybe sell them or give them away. Another example is kitchen equipment. We have recently gotten some new some of our equipment gets old. We need to dispose of them. So this is a resolution to be able to do that. And just like the other one, it's ed code that requires the board to authorize us to do this before we can.
Okay. Any requests to speak on this item? Hearing none. Board members, any comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve resolution number 2024-2025-03, authorizing disposal of surplus property during the 2024-2025 fiscal year.
I second the motion.
In motion and second, all in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you so much. All right, we are now moving to the discussion item for our governance council. Doctor, you gonna lead us out?
I just want to
Okay.
state, because there was a question to me earlier before the meeting, that the governance calendar is actually not something that's like an action item that you approve. It's rather a working document. And CSBA really looks at this as a legally, unless it's about legally required items, it's really up to the board and the administration to develop this calendar and create the scheduling and timing of events based on our priorities. So this is our best shot at what we've heard you say about what you want to work on next year. It's completely a draft for you to opine on and decide as a whole, things that you want us to take off, add, whatever that looks like. So you've had it in front of you for a couple of days now. And I just wanted to make sure that I kind of prefaced it with that explanation. Thank you.
I'm assuming there's no request to speak on this item. Okay, board members, it's open for discussion and or comments. And I know that, again, it's a draft, but if there's feedback we want to or comments we want to give Dr. Maldonado, this is the time, Dr. Ms.
Thank
Fisker.
you.
It's
I'll
it's
take
8
it.
o'clock, 7:45. It's your doctor now. Okay.
So last governance calendar had regular ELA adoption updates. And I see that we have the ELA math common assessments on here from Ed Services, but can we add back the ELA adoption updates on a regular interval for board consider? I have a particular interest in it, and I think Dr. Beal does as well.
Yes, I have the same question. And I also realize that we don't need to do this monthly, but we did adopt other curricula, particle physics, so I would really like to keep that energy going, that we are receiving feedback, that it is effective, teachers are adopting it, and maybe for some of the less, there's some curricula that we can have less frequent updates, but to have more regular updates on all these things.
And just to piggyback on that, I remember that for ELA adoption, there was like a 3-year strategic plan rollout included in those updates. Where are we in that strategic plan? Would be helpful.
So as I look at your faces, I want to just make sure that we will need to look at the frequency of that. I did put the Ed Services instructional improvement plan. That's how I labeled it, and I put in ELA math and common assessment so that I could capture this overall idea that it's not just about like how is the implementation of ELA going, but what is our overall improvement plan in Ed Services for how we're going to improve our program. And that would include how's the ELA implementation going? How's the math junior high implementation going? We can certainly add physics, ethnic studies, and Teach Town in this overall improvement plan idea. That's why I sort of labeled it that way. I put it there twice. What I can do is go back and work with the team and maybe disperse it, between the meetings from July to, for now, from August to June, and maybe do like every other month, we do some level of that overall improvement plan. And part of that is that we've only been talking about curriculum in sort of this isolated way. There's also this idea that we've done a much better job of, and when I say we, I mean them, just to be clear that our Ed Service Department has been working a lot with principals on an overall assessment calendar for the year. And that's something that I would like to bring as part of this sort of report, this overall planning that's been done around the common assessments that we're going to use, because I heard you ask questions around not just curriculum, but how are we assessing? How will we know that? So I sort of went up a little bit to the balcony in labeling this item to that end. Now, with all that said, we are going to have to try to think of how do we make this efficient in a short meeting like we have, because as you know, the calendar does get pretty filled up pretty quickly in light of also this budget and sustainability reporting we're going to be looking at. So I'm trying to just manage expectations, but also so what I'm working on is how do we have Ed Services do this big introductory education services improvement plan that includes curriculum and assessments, ELA, math, so on. And then from then we can build, I'll add every other month, some kind of reporting into that overall, if that I hope that made sense. I feel like I'm using my hands a lot and trying to explain this.
That makes sense. I would say one way to get ahead of, because the calendar does get congested. We experienced that quite a bit last year. We were in the middle of labor negotiations, so that added to it, but nonetheless, it does
Yeah.
get congested. Is put more information in the board memos, because it doesn't necessarily need to be in the presentation if it's available to the public in the board memos, and we can read that and from there ask questions. Because I think sometimes there's not enough information in the board memos, and then the presentation themselves don't have the context until we hear the presentation in person. And so then we have to kind of think off of just like a reaction. So adding more information to the board memo, I think would be extremely helpful. Then your presentations could be shorter.
And I'm looking at them because I keep
Okay.
telling them that. You guys are taking notes, right? Yes, I definitely agree that if we do this high level, what are all the strategies? Then the memo that comes following each one will have the data, information, and so on. I
Yeah.
agree. Sorry.
Yes, just to build upon what we were just talking about, sort of, we're having these like board sustainability meetings where we talk about what's coming down the pike, do we have something that's ending? The curriculum for me is such an important thing. And so, yes, the more information that we have, that we don't have to ask so many questions and keep prolonging the discussion. Whatever we can have that is presented, not just to us, but to the public, we can read it on our own time. Our questions can become much more focused and we're all talking about the same thing. Like, I think even about like, if we're talking about ELA, like CAS testing is coming up. We're just about to train teachers on how to create good environments for this testing. What sort of interventions are we doing for students who have more trouble in the environments? If I could read that, I know it's happening. I don't have to ask that question. So I know it's a lot of work, but that information is information that you can see over and over again. So it helps me, and I can't imagine it doesn't help other people in the public understand what we're doing.
Absolutely, I agree.
Additional comments and questions?
I-
Mr. Banning?
I just want to say thank you for the work on this. This is something that has evolved even in the last year and a half that I've been here. And so I do appreciate it. It really is a part of putting all these pieces together and getting to the right place. I also want to just for a moment make a semantic point. When we talk about curriculum adoptions, that's different than what you're labeling here in terms of instructional improvement and that kind of thing. An adoption is the process of looking, choosing, selecting, and then buying a particular curriculum. So I think that I agree entirely with what's being said. We need information about it, but there is just that little semantic piece there that adoptions really are the process of selecting and choosing and putting in place. Training, how's it going? What are we hearing from the teachers? How is this happening, particularly in conjunction with what we're learning about assessment and how students are doing with the new curriculum? So I just want to say thank you for putting the energy around this. It's a very important document that will help us be more efficient.
Mr. Escobedo?
Is there an update on a joint meeting with city council? I know we had, no? I know they just got a new city administrator, so they're probably busy. And then there was also discussion about one with SBCC.
Yeah, that's in the works with that. But actually, there had been some scheduling issues, and so Sandra's been working on that. So I actually
Okay.
meet on a different committee there with them, and that came up, and they realized that, whoops, we need to do that. So I know that one's in the works. Getting back to Sandra, I know she'd been reaching out and wasn't able to
Thank
get
you.
a hold of anyone. So that one's for sure in the works. Sure.
So just to summarize my understanding on the Ed Services piece, I'm looking at the calendar and I'm looking at the fact that we put in September, when there's 2 meetings in September, this overall instruction improvement plan that includes everything. And then in December, we have, October, we have the EML report. And I imagine that because that's an important population, we're really tracking that we want to keep that one. We have one of two, the second one being in April. And then I'm thinking November is a one meeting month. So I will add another instruction improvement plan there based on this conversation. I put one in January and I'm going to add another one in March, which I have right now labeled as student outcomes report. We have done student outcomes report for you, and I'm noticing that it says report 202, which would have been just the first time we have a report on, we have a student outcomes report in October and a second one in March. And that's when we look at, for example, in October, we're going to get the final CASP results, where we're going to look at all those big, once a year reporting. And then in March, we're looking at more of like the STAR assessments, the formative assessments, for you to sort of know kind of, our own internal local assessments. So I can add another one of these Ed Service Instruction Improvement Plans reports in March to the calendar. So does that sound like the right pattern? September, November, January, and March. Yes? I'm seeing yes, I'm seeing some nods, and then we'll keep the two EML reports, which is one in October and one in April, along with the student outcomes reports, one in October and one in March.
That sounds good to me. And if possible, either in June or July, if we have a light schedule, maybe like a academic year recap, right?
Okay.
Because we get one in March, and then we still have a couple of months of school left, and maybe something at the end. It doesn't have to be the longest because we've gone through with those check-ins, but a recap of the year.
I will say yes with this caveat. If you notice that we have single plans that are happening in May and June, and in many ways, the act of creating those single plans is a bit of a recap, because they're actually using all the data that we've just discussed to write their single plan. So if you don't mind, let's think about, we did talk about last year, we didn't like the way we did the single plan because we thought it was too short, too rushed. So if I add this other recap, that'll take time. So we want to protect maybe the May time for us to maybe do a deeper dive into single plans. So we're really, because when we're coming, we're doing this very high district level, and you've expressed a lot of interest in like what is happening in schools. So I'd rather us maybe think about focusing on the single plan in that process, where you're getting to more to the school level understanding as part of both the recap and the forward planning. What do you think about that?
That's fine. As someone brilliant once said, we link initiatives here.
There you go. Yeah, so we'll try to link it up. I'm just trying to really manage your time, our time, and be responsive and thoughtful.
Okay, any additional comments or questions? Yes, thank you, Dr. Maldonado and team and staff for doing this. I just had a clarification question. Where we have the Williams quarterly report and then is Williams annual report, are they the same or?
Dr. Sheffield, the Williams quarterly and annual are two different things, yes?
Because then we go to back to the quarterly. Yeah. Okay, could you please come to the mic?
Yeah, can you come to the mic? Thank you.
Are we on? Yes. So they're different. At the beginning of the year, we do normally have a Williams visit, someone from the state, ensuring that we have curriculum for all of our key areas. They do identify the schools in which they will visit and identify making sure that we're meeting that criteria. And then we will follow, and we'll give you a report of that on what they report. And then there is follow-up after that. But the first one is different, the one that's happening early September. Anything else? I'm looking.
I don't see that in
calendar.
September on the calendar here. I see
Actually, it's
October.
October.
It's the very
Yeah,
top,
the
the
second.
second page. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Got it. I just. Right. I just seen it at the bottom here. So I'd carry over to the next page. So thank you for that clarification, because I thought
Okay.
they were the same. the visit. We just put a annual instead of quarterly. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Dr. Sheffield. Okay, board members, again, this is no action required on this, and continue to process it and give feedback to Dr. Maldonado, and thank you for summarizing that. And the input, as Mr. Banning has said, this report really has evolved over time, and I can see it. Used to have a lot of blank spaces, now everything's getting filled up. So I mean, that's good. I mean, that's really good. So that means that we're doing the business we need to do. Okay, so with that, I just would call attention board members to coming events. August 14th, back to school kickoff. And then there's during that 14th and 15th, there's also Professional Development Day, and Teacher Work Day is August 16th. And the first day of school is August 19th. And then we're back to our regular board meeting, August 20th. Unless there's any additional comments or questions, we adjourn the regular board meeting, and we will adjourn to closed session to finishing up discussion there. So thank you, and thank you for participating this evening.